Hello everyone. So we have been discussing about water economics and governance through past 12 weeks. The course has now been completed. We did earlier a live interaction session where we discussed over some of the issues and concerns raised by various participants in over 6 weeks content. And since the course has ended and there was request from participants as well, so we thought of having this another live interaction session. This time we have Professor B. Sahu with us, who is my colleague and works at a School of Water Resources at IIT Kharagpur. I welcome Professor Sahu, and he also works in the agricultural water distribution and agricultural water management areas. So we will be able to suggest some ideas and thoughts over over such concerns raised by the participants. So I welcome you all again, and we are open to the questions that you have. To begin with, we had a few questions received on the Google Sheet. So one of our very active participants who unfortunately could not attend probably the first live interaction session, Suraj. So he has posed a question that what are the research areas in water economics and governance, and how to start a case study. So Suraj, as has written, he works in the Ethiopia at present and want to take up some case study and needs some idea onto that. So what I think that the water economics and governance is a fairly broad area, and when we are looking to take up a case study can be on a theme where we involved multiple places. So say in a, let's say, analysis or benchmarking of water utilities. So take up say 5-6 different water utilities in a country or in a state, and then analyze their economics, their governance, their policy framework, and compare them, estimate their various performance indicators for the purpose, compare them and benchmark the utilities. That could be an example of case study. There is another type of case study when we are stick to area. So let us say just we are considering just one for say agricultural sector, or if like from the economic and governance perspective, analysis of the impact of any major project. So like river interlinking project for say. So there in the river interlinking project, so you consider that project as a case and try to collect the data related to all the different aspects of project involving economic aspects, how much expenditure is going to made say for a project, how much your cost is going to be incurred, what are the likely return in terms of benefits, social benefits, environmental benefits and financial benefits as well. So then you can analyze that as a case and present that, okay, this is the report. You can take a case study over just governance framework. So there could be different degree of, let's say you can take a case study of say one water utility, how this has been performing in the past, okay, what has been the you can use different number of parameters for say, okay, water utility, how much are the let's say number of staff per 1000 connections can be a parameter. So how across the years utility is facing, whether there is a manpower crisis or where there is a manpower excess, you can have all those things. So in terms of just this small thing, you can do a case study. You can do a case study on a much larger aspects of one single water utility, where you consider that, okay, what is the what has been the source of water, how has been the impact, what has been the utilities business area, how much has been the coverage of utility over the period of time, what have been the different policies related to, let's say, supply of water or related to charging the consumers for the water prices. So those kind of variety of your aspects could be there for a case study. As far as how to start a case study, well, simply you have to select a theme for that, Suraj, because if you want to start a case study just based on your interest, based on sector, because you can first you decide whether you want to do in a domestic sector, industrial sector, agricultural sector, then whether you want to look at the financial aspects, look at the social or economic aspects, look at the engineering aspects, or look at the all of these aspects. So once you worked out that what is going to be total coverage of your total scope of your case study, and based on that you can initiate it. We will be happy to provide you far more detail if you have some startup idea that okay, you want to do this kind of case study. So then we can further be able to guide you about the approach of taking that case study. There was a question on irrigation. So there is like a question that irrigation in India is heavily dependent on groundwater resources, which is primarily because surface water resources are quite inefficient. So the question was about the development of a surface water resource for irrigation purpose through a integrated water management approach or principles, and can a case study be carried out to design a central water allocation system for irrigation water supplies. So I will request Professor Sahu to shed some light on this.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Theory. So regarding this question, can we develop our surface water resources with the help of an integrated water management approach? Yes, why not? We can develop, but you know that in case of surface water, for that you have to provide irrigation. So for you should have the irrigation system also, system network should be there. So in that case, you should have a dam, construction of a dam, maybe barrage or maybe any reservoir. So you know that it is not very much feasible to construct any reservoir or any dam anywhere in the river. So for that we need a specific site, isn't it? So because of that, the surface water development is not very much prevalent in India, and you know that the irrigation efficiency of surface water is very less because of the conveyance losses and all other factors or water management aspects. So because of this, so more emphasis is given on groundwater development. So you can extract more water during lean period, or when there is a low flow period, you can go for your extracting water from the groundwater sources. But you are asking that can we develop our surface water resources with the help of an integrated water management approach. So that means you are going for the catchment treatment, so that you are increasing the base flow, and by that way you are increasing the base flow in the river system, and so that you are getting more water which is harvested in the reservoir. Okay, so in that case you can increase your total water availability in the reservoir, and you can make use of that efficiently, because if you go for afforestation or say forestation in the headwater catchments, then you can go for different watershed management techniques. So that will increase your infiltration rate in the catchment, and by that way the base flow or the river flow, whatever you are getting during lean period, that will be maximized, and so you will be getting surplus water for irrigation during lean period. As far as the monsoon or the rainy period is concerned, I think there is no surface water availability problem. Okay. And regarding your second question, can we carry a case study to design a central water allocation system for irrigation water supplies, which is model for outflows from small hydraulic structures installed at selected meter locations? Yeah. So this is considering like there are multiple harvesting systems, and whatever the water you are getting from different sources or different locations you are collecting that water and making a judicious water use. So, in that case you have to integrate your flow measurement technique with the optimization technique. So, this is just like a simulation and optimization program. So, you are getting the flow rate in real time, then you should have the demand component, say at the agriculture side or maybe at other sectors like your domestic, or maybe how much water is used by the crops. So, that you can, that data you can get in real time, how much water is required by these stakeholders. Then you can make one optimization, you can insert one optimization technique. So, it is just like a simulation, you are simulating or you are getting the flow measurement or how much you are quantifying the flow, and then you are just distributing that flow by using one optimization technique, so that the irrigation can be given at the critical growth stage of the crop to maximize the production.
And I think there are, I guess there are various standard models also available for
Yeah,
this.
so like Rivasim is also, the one is Rivasim is also there, one is you can go for Mike Basin is also another software. So, this software can be used, even WEAP is also there, WEAP. So, these are freely available in the internet and you can download those things, and these are integrated with all these optimization techniques. So, depending on water availability, you can just feed that data and you simulate how much water has to be allocated to different sectors as far as the canal command is concerned.
Thank you, Professor Sahu. We have another question in the Google sheet, is from Mr. Sumit Joshi. So, he has just written that water economics basis, which I perceive as he want to have some discussion over on what basis the water economics is analyzed or studied. So, well, there has been I guess adequate discussion during the course lectures on this, on what basis we can sort of analyze the economics of water. We have discussed various valuation methods of water and how the water valued along with its non-tangible aspects, like the values of water as in externalities in form of, let us say, environmental externalities or the economic externalities. So, even that has been discussed. There has been a similar question on the discussion on externalities brings me on this question by Preeti Mall. Please explain about negative externalities. So, the negative externalities, as in like whenever we are trying to implement a project, water project, say for matter you are trying to put through a canal from an area. So, if we try to estimate the cost and benefit of the project, what we normally assume for cost purpose, how much is going to be the earthwork, how much is going to be the manpower cost, how much payment is to be made to the laborers that way, and then what other tools, equipments will be used, what would be the lining cost, what would be the power cost. So, all that different type of cost we monitor, we measure. All the different type of benefits are also measured or monitored in terms of, let us say, okay, we will flow this much of water. So, let us say we charge irrigation as for say let us say X rupees per hectare. So, we are going to irrigate this much of land out of this canal, and this will be able to generate this much of revenue. So, we get a estimate of cost, we get a estimate of benefits, say in terms of our financial numbers. But what about the other cost and benefits associated? When you are taking a canal from, let us say, a land area, so we of course we do consider cost of land, but there is some agricultural practice going on that land. Okay, there might be some ecological habitat developed in that area which is going to be disturbed when you are passing through that canal for say. So, there is an intangible or non-tangible cost associated with these different aspects which are not directly related with the financial terms. So, like the disturbance in the ecology, or let us say somebody's livelihood is going to be affected, he has to be migrated to a new place, you can give him the new set of land, that is all right, but his existing habitat he has lost. So, there is some social cost associated with that. So, these kind of, there are costs as well as there are benefits also. Okay, when you are putting a canal, the sort of the area is probably going to be far more developed, there is going to be new, means we can consider the price of water which is being charged for irrigation purpose, but as of that practice, how much is the value of the crop is increasing, how much social upliftment is taking place in the lives of those villagers or dependent on to that. So, there is a lot of another benefits are also associated. So, these benefits, if they are positive, we call them positive externalities, or in terms of externalities in terms of benefits, while if these are negative, or let us say disturbances in the ecology, or let us say some pollution issues being created out of that, rehabilitation issues. So, all this which cannot be precisely monitor or put in the financial numbers are intangible cost. So, they are considered as negative externalities. And in the water economic analysis, we must consider all these aspects. If we consider just let us say investment and return in terms of monetary numbers in a project, we are probably not going to genuinely evaluate a water project, because water project has a lot of social associations involved with this, that could be in terms of positive or in terms of negative both. Okay, so, constructing a dam needs large degree of rehabilitation. We probably, as just Professor Sahu was discussing, that if we want to plan a surface water based irrigation system, we have to consider dams, but we all very much know that how much protest we get for any new dam project. So, that protest essentially comes because of this social issues involved, okay, which is often not considered when we just account the financials of that new dam commissioning project, right? What you suggest?
Yeah. So, that is called as a holistic approach,
right?
Out a holistic approach.
Yes. So, obviously, so we must consider all this holistic approach for economic analysis, so that we can all consider all different type of tangible as well as intangible cost, tangible as well as intangible benefits, and then probably derive our conclusion whether this project is worthy to be implemented or not. So, there was another question by Jayadeep. So, Jayadeep also has been a very active member on the forum, and I thank him for that. Unfortunately, we could not answer a few of his questions on the forum due to some time constraints or that, but anyway. So, his one question is that which was in a way put in the forum also, that how do we calculate the valuation of water harvesting projects, and he has given example of several water harvesting projects being conducted in the state of Gujarat and Rajasthan probably. And then he has asked for some insights on the UNIDO method of social cost benefit analysis. Okay. So, the UNIDO approach is essentially a method which has been developed by the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and see, we discussed various cost, various sort of this evaluation methods, various analysis methods, and UNIDO is one of the methods for social cost benefit analysis, which primarily is now being recommended by the United Nations, and many of the your CSR projects are being evaluated based on that, because the the CSR project has a responsibility of social upliftment, and social upliftment, as we were discussing, cannot always be monitored in terms of financial numbers. So we need to consider the social cost and benefits aspect also. So this UNIDO method essentially is we do calculate the monetary cost and monetary benefits, so the financial profits that project is going to generate and the financial cost that project is going to be involved at standard market prices. That is the first step, as we do for various other this cost benefit analysis approaches. We do similar thing here also, but apart from just monitoring this, there are adjustment procedures. So we need to, what we do essentially, we adjust the benefits and the cost of the project, incorporating these social sort of, what we can say in a way, externalities. Okay. So what is the impact that project is going to make on the investment, on the saving from the social front, what will be the impact of the project on the income distribution in that area. Okay. So that is considered. Then the project impact on the sort of the overall social values, how the social values is going to be differ when the project is implemented to a case when the project was not implemented. So all these estimations are made. Now how these estimations are made? Well, there are again, because since we are talking about the social cost and values, so there is no direct approach to convert these in, say, monetary numbers. Okay. So it is typically done through some standard protocols. Again, various variety of procedures exist for that. The general or most common this thing is based on the sort of some standard matrix developed with the taking various opinions from the group of experts, okay, group of people working in that sector who has all that gross idea of this sort of net effects on of the project implementations on the society. So based on their that matrix developed, the cost and benefits of the project are adjusted for considering the social inputs as well, and then we get a cost benefit and ratio approach. So this is applicable in all sort of projects which are having any sort of social implications, and it is far more preferred for water sector, because as we were discussing just that most of the water project in some way or other way has impact on society. Could be positive, could be negative, could be partially positive and partially negative, which is the most probable case. Okay. So like river interlinking project we have, so there is going to be lot of land acquisition, lot of like socio-climatic changes are going to take place. So yes, of course. So all those things will be there. So there will be positive impacts also, because you are likely to manage the flood and drought in a better way. Okay. And probably you will be able to like we were just discussing that surface water based irrigation scheme. So probably this kind of project, river interlinking project, can be of very great value to such schemes. Yeah. If you your interlinking canals passes through the, let's say, drier areas, so there you are putting an opportunity for surface water irrigation.
Yeah, more water recharge will be also, the groundwater
yes.
recharge will be there, so it will increase the groundwater potential. So in one way it is disturbing the environment, in other way you are gaining some.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's how basically these social impacts will be there.
So can you answer another question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is another question. I want to work on advances in surface flow measurement for irrigation water supplies by using an integrated water management approach. Which of the available softwares will be useful to carry out such analysis? Okay, so if you want to work on the advanced surface flow measurement techniques, so you can use one ADCP is there. So you know that total discharge equal to velocity into cross sectional area, and this cross sectional area is nothing but water area. So water area is a function of the water depth. So water depth you can measure in real time by using automatic water level recorders. Then for velocity measurements, you may use like your say acoustic Doppler things or radar type of instruments you can use, or pressure transducers also you can use, and or you can use the ADCP, that is acoustic Doppler current profiler. So it will provide you the velocity as well as the cross sectional area. So if you multiply the velocity with cross sectional area, you will get directly what is your total discharge. But you want to ask that which of the available softwares will be useful to carry out such an analysis. So it is not clear actually what type of analysis do you want. Do you want
measurement purpose you need physical devices.
Yeah.
Okay. So software will not give the measurement. Software is generally used for modeling. So if you have some, let's say, input parameters, so you can use various software. Even you can get the, let's say, if you have developed a rating curve, so you can fit rating curve in a software, and then just based on the stage you can monitor the discharge. Okay.
So for that I think there is no need of software.
For that there are plenty of tools, softwares, or you can do it in a simple Excel program. Okay. I don't think that will be require some very hi-fi software as such. So there is another question by Jaydeep. He has asked for references of several numerical problem exercise discussed in the various lectures. So Jaydeep, see, I could not able to provide you references even in your forum question related to this. It's actually the, see, majority of these questions that you see, you will not find such questions in the books, unfortunately. Primarily because you see if you find books on water economics and water governance or all such topics, so they mostly discuss the theoretical aspects, they do not go into the problem solving, okay, and that is why there are not many such problems available. The problem that you saw in the slides or in the lectures were all designed by me only. So there is no as such reference for those problems. Okay. Generally, based on the concepts we discussed and based on the cases that we often find in the field, we put them into some, let's say, number and create a numerical problem that way. So that is how these problems were created. I have not adopted these problems, let's say, from any specific book or that way. So it is like reference giving for such problems. I have not actually come across the books having such similar problems. So if I come across in future, I will definitely let you know that you can refer to those readings. However, the problems that you see is based on the general concept of the discussions, and those problems you can yourself put in, say, take a different number for a different city or for a different case, or change the number and try to analyze those sort of parameters which we have done in these problems. So as if I remember correctly, you have asked for the problems related to the lecture 20B, we discussed the valuation of water, we discussed the idea of your auditing of urban water utilities. So if you have, let's say, so for that, this kind of problem, let's say any urban utility, XYZ urban utility is having certain numbers in the monitoring is being done, this is the data coming from the consumers, this is the flow meter from one aspect, that aspect. So we can take imaginary numbers and create a problems like this. So that is how these problems were designed. We have another questions from Suryasis. He wants to know that how does the global water crisis look at the ground level. So So, this is actually the global water crisis as such on ground level does not exist. Okay. I am saying this in a way that the ground level, if you want to see at a ground level, the crisis is always local or regional. Okay. It is not that the entire globe is not having the water or there is a crisis at ground level. When we have different continents, those are pretty rich in the water, let us say Europe. So, there is not much of course, there is some issues in the European countries also, but a large portion of the Europe or a large portion of, or say the American continent is pretty rich in the water resources. So, as such we do say that global water crisis, global water crisis. Global water crisis we refer in a sense that when we consider the global water availability and global population, then we say that okay, on a global scale also the population is like the population is increasing, the fresh water availability is decreasing, or we say that okay, even if we distribute it regionally, so on a global scale we say okay, let us say that around 40% of global population is not getting adequate water resources. But these global numbers are always large average number, and when we look at the ground level, we are more concerned about the regional issues. So, in India we say that our water availability is let us say around 1700 or 1800 meter cube per capita per year, but now you see the state here, we have several states which are, there is not much of water issues, okay, in many of the states.
So, it is a mismatch between demand and supply, you could say.
It is misbalance between the demand and supply, it is sort of
if it will decrease on the threshold value,
no, the natural distribution of water also is not equitable.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have states which are pretty rich in water resources. Now you see the state like you western India, you take the Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, they are pretty drier states. So we often get a lot of water crisis or on the ground level. If you see a couple of years back, what happened in Latur, we all know that. Okay, there was a huge water crisis in that. Every year we see the issues in Rajasthan, issues in Maharashtra, issues in Gujarat onto the water crisis, because their availability is reduced. We do not hear that much about the West Bengal. West Bengal issues are more so related to the pollution. Okay, we say that okay, the also some sectors in the West Bengal also, if you see that Sagar Island and all that, so their all surface water resources are saline, and their groundwater is as deep as 1100 or high, even higher.
But he is asking about how it look like at the ground level. So, look like means whether he is asking about the symptom, I mean how it will look like, I mean what is the symptom of water crisis?
Water symptoms of water crisis are obvious, the lack of availability of water.
Yeah.
So, if there is let us say
so you get power cut, if sufficient water is not there, hydropower generation will be less. So, there will be like your that we talk about economic drought.
Your household supplies will be cut down.
Yeah.
So, you will be probably asked to, like you can take example from Cape Town. So, there is a lot of hue and cry about the water crisis in the Cape Town, which is supposed to the resources, water resources of Cape Town are supposed to be exhaust this month only, the April of 2018. So, there the people have come up with a policy that you cannot take bath more than once in a week or that kind of thing. So, the per capita water supply has been restricted. Community supply is being done where people are lining up for collecting a bucket of water. So, this indicates that there is a water crisis. You are not getting 24-hour supply in your taps. Okay. You are not having the access to adequate quantity of water. That is what indicates the water crisis at the ground level. But overall, if you see this kind of scenarios often appear on a local or at max regional scale. So, like we were discussing issues where Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, collectively we can say that yes, there is a water crisis.
So, it is we are telling it or naming it as a global water crisis because or many areas are getting affected by this crisis because of mismanagement.
On a whole, means if you clump these small patches or regions, so what we see that maybe because Africa, you see, there is a huge water crisis in the entire Africa. Okay, so that's a big region. So that way, if we club all these areas which are under water stress or water sort of
course, pollution is also an issue.
Yeah, so water scarcity. So that way, we can say that say 50% or 60% part of the entire world is under water crisis. So then we consider this as a global problem or a global challenge. But issues are always at a regional scale. And our water governance also, as we discussed during the lectures as well, that our water governance also focus on the regional, the authority of governing water is to a regional scale only. So that is why I said that it's far more important on a ground level, it's far more important to look at a regional scale than global scale. Yeah. Probably the global scale problems cannot be solved in one go. If we at all think about global water crisis, so there are issues related to the climate change impact on the water resources. That is taking place on a global level, because climate change is not a local, it could be a regional phenomena at few places, but in general it is perceived as a global phenomena. So if that kind of
because the scale of occurrence
is much higher. Okay. So that's, I think, was the idea of the question. There was a question, difference between the cash flow and income. So the cash flow and income, see, income is when you are getting money out of something, and cash flow is a much larger term. So whenever cash is going under transaction, cash in a way means money is going under transaction. It's not has to be cash, it can be done through like other modes also. But when money is under transaction, we call that as a cash flow. So for say if you trying to analyze a cash flow, so you will analyze, okay, how much has been the investment. Now investment also in the operation and maintenance, in the your capital investment, in the, if you go to the finer detail, you can again, let's say operation and maintenance also you can put in different subsections. Okay, the investment onto the manpower or human resources investment onto the electricity or power charges, maintenance charges, that way. So there are different type or different form of investments. All of these needs some transaction, okay, some monetary transactions. So all these monetary transactions are actually a form of cash flow. When we say that similarly, income side also, there could be a cash flow which is coming from the consumers, there could be some portion coming in from the, let's say, government as a form of subsidy, because there is a lot of role of subsidies in water management, particularly the urban supply sector. So our urban water utilities do get subsidy from the government. So there is money coming in from, let's say, government. So that is coming into the system, that will be a component of cash flow. Income is the only sort of income, you can say, something which is being subtracted from the, like, your total incoming cash flow minus total outgoing cash flow is your income or profit in a way. So it's how you define your income that way. If you are defining income as a, let's say, total incoming cash flow is your income, and then you subtract cost out of your income and then get the profit, that is one way. If you define income as a, let's say, profit, then the total incoming cash flow minus total outgoing cash flow will give you the net income. You are paying taxes on your income for say. So generally in the government seat, income is the total incoming cash flow. Okay, so whatsoever cash flow is incoming, particularly from the consumers and all that, so that is your income, that is a form of cash flow. There will be some taxation on that, so that is actually a form of outgoing cash flow. So cash flow is a much larger term, and each and every monetary transaction that is being taken place, or that is likely to take place is a form of cash flow. And when we do that cash flow analysis means we consider all the routes through which money is going to come into the system or into the project, and all the routes through which money is going out of the project. And then we do the net cash flow what we get is generally defined as your what you can say income or income post taxes, whatsoever way you define it. So the net cash flow is the difference of the money, total money going out of the system minus total money coming in the system. Okay. So that is how the cash flow analysis is typically done. So we consider all the inflows, we consider all the outflows, and we get a net cash flow. Then we can, if you are referring to the say capital budgeting techniques, then ideally we should incorporate the time value aspect as well, and thereafter we can set or analyze the system that way. So that is what is the cash on the cash flow thing. And there is a question again on to the exercise on sustainable water discharge withdrawal rate. Well, those exercises were also, reference for those exercises were asked. Okay. So these exercises, as I discussed, were primarily constructed by me. So Siraj has joined us, so welcome Suraj, and he asked that case study to eliminate the to estimate the sustainable price of water in Ethiopia. Okay, so you want to conduct a case study to estimate the sustainable price of water in Ethiopia. So Ethiopia, when you are taking a scale as large as a country, say for that matter, so on this large scale, when you are considering a country, you have to first get the total water budget of the region. Okay, how much water is coming in the system, okay, through different ways, through precipitation and through let's say surface channels flows, what is the status of groundwater. Probably you can take for this bigger case study, I think any time frame less than a year is not going to be sufficient. Okay, so you consider time frame, say you are taking 1 year as a time frame. Okay. So consider 1 year as a time frame, collect the precipitation data, overall precipitation data in the Ethiopia, collect the surface inflow through surface channel and outflow through surface channel. So how much water is available there, first you estimate that. Then you must look for the different uses of the water. Okay. So because you are doing a, let's say, national scale, so obviously getting very fine detail or incorporating very fine detail is probably will not be possible and will lead to very small minute changes. So you get on a national scale only what are the different components of water which are in use. Okay, how let's say total rainfall for total water availability or total water consumption, that way in a year's period you determine that the X is the amount of water which is, let's say, is being consumed. You try to identify what different sectors are consuming how much water. You try to get the willingness to pay surveys for these different sectors, because when you are trying to, let's say, estimate a sustainable price, you should not rely on whatever is being charged or whatever is being provided by the government. Rather, you should conduct a willingness to pay survey. Your price for water, as we discussed earlier in the lectures also, eventually depends on what is the willingness to pay. So you try to get the willingness to pay for the different uses of the water which is being used in the different sectors. So after the getting the prices, the willingness to pay, and then you try to get an average estimate for the cost associated in each of these sectors. So for say domestic water supply, what is the average unit cost of water, domestic water supply that is being considered, that is being fetched, and then you try to estimate the so you have got the total cost idea for different sector, total availability idea, means total availability, total volume available for in a year basis, and what are the different willingness to pay from the different sectors. Then what you should then what you can do, you can incorporate the allocation, how the water is being allocated, how much is going to which sector, which is the second best allocation, and then probably you can, if you want to see the value of, see the idea, if your idea is to see what is the sustainable price in different sectors, then that will come from the willingness to pay, how much people are willing to pay for different grade. So when you try to conduct a willingness to pay survey, you conduct it for a different grades also, like if the level of services is this much, how much people, because the willingness to pay will change on the sort of how good the services are. For domestic water supply, if you are just putting a water and asking users to treat water, put it through RO system before consuming it, the willingness to pay is obviously going to be less. But if you are assuring users that okay, how much you are willing to pay if you get, let's say, a 24/7 RO water supply which you can directly drink from the tap, okay, what we usually see in the Western world. So the willingness to pay is obviously growing to higher. So that way, for these different willingness to pay aspects, how much water, how much people is willingness to pay can be a sustainable price for that sector. Okay. However, if you want to do on a national or across the sectoral scale, so what is the willingness to pay in different sector, how much water is being allocated, what is the next best water use. Okay. So the opportunity cost, as we discussed during the lecture. So you should bring that opportunity cost also in the purview of your total analysis, okay, and that way probably you will be able to get the like once you get all these data, you will be able to analyze it and get the sustainable price. Suraj has also asked how to handle the bulky material for final examination. Oh, so well, the material is not that bulky for final exam, okay, and I suggest you to go through the tutorials first, okay. So the question in the final exam will be more or less similar to that in the tutorials. So I advise you to carefully go through the tutorials. You might have made several mistakes during the tutorials, but answers with explanation of all the questions has been provided. If you still have some query, you feel free to write at the forum. We will be actively looking at forum unless the exams is complete. So for any queries, you can refer to the you can sort of refer to the lecture materials, assignment solutions, and still if you have queries, please post it to the forum. And the problems or the concepts, whichever has been discussed, that is what is going to be covered. And since it's a 3-unit course for a 12 weeks, obviously there will be enough content, okay, for final examination. But I see no reason that you cannot do good in the exam if you just go through the lectures or the lecture material, the slides which has been provided to you, and the assignment solutions. That should particularly the assignments, because we have significant content of the questions from the assignment, okay, and then there is a recall section which is based on the lecture materials. So majority means significant part of the question paper you will see will be coming from these assignments and to some extent lecture materials. So, I think it will be possible to do good in the exam for all of you, and I wish you all the best for the exam. There is another question: is there something to do from outside individual with not sustainable price of water? How one can start to protect the community from this? On an individual level, it is actually very difficult, to be honest. See, what happens that again depends on the case to case and depends on the location to location, but if we see our Indian context, so there has been an interesting post in the forum which said that the water prices in the Ghaziabad has been enhanced, and there has been lot of opposition of that. Similarly, this month only, last week I was in the Rajasthan and was having discussion with the public health engineering department engineers over there, and they were also telling that because the Jaipur has got funds from the World Bank, and one of their criteria was that there has to be annual increase in the water tariffs. Okay. So, they increased the tariff, and there is a lot of opposition going on. And moreover, we know that here the tariffs are far more politically driven rather than the actual cost and supply driven, and Rajasthan is going to be like for elections this year only. So, they were saying that there is every possibility that this will be rolled back. So, that kind of situation is there. On an individual scale, though, I appreciate your thought that you are thinking about doing something at least on individual scale, so that you can sort of protect the community from not sustainable prices of water. Sustainable prices of water are generally going to be high, okay, in India per se, because nowhere water is a profit making this thing. So, for sustainable water prices means you have to increase the prices, because no utility is even recovering the operation and maintenance cost. Those even with the metered connection, Rajasthan, there are many towns which has been metered, but either their meters are not working properly, or even if it is working, it is getting recorded. They have not adopted the consumption based tariff, and they are still charging a flat tariff. Now, as we are having discussions, these flat tariffs are not even sufficient to meet the operation and maintenance cost, not even sufficient to meet the power bills, forget about operation and maintenance cost. So, if you want to go for a sustainable prices, you have to increase the tariff. Of course, we can adopt multi-layer systems that way, and this kind of structure, IBT model or those kind of models can be adopted, where the baseline tariff is low, so that at least the basic demand of people are met at lower prices. But the problem is, when you provide a community something for free, they sort of start realizing that this is their right to get this for free, and then when you again started charging for it, so there will be a lot of repercussions coming in, okay, and that is what is happening in the water sector. So, because tariffs are so low, so if utilities try to increase the prices, there are like lot of agitations and political.
This is natural thing. So, for this actually public awareness is also required.
Public awareness is needed, yeah. And see, small effects, not probably from individual, but from government or even from the local government, can do a lot of changes. The first thing is, see, we are working in a water sector, so we know what is the status of expenses being made towards water services, but generally if you see a common people, they don't know it, okay. They don't realize that how much is costing for this getting water, withdrawing water from a, let's say, aquifer or from a river, treating it, purifying it, putting it through a distribution system, making it available to their tap. They think that water is a natural commodity, it is available for free, so we should get it for free or for negligible prices for that matter. So, first thing is that people should made aware about the sustainable prices. They should be made aware about the direct and indirect cost associated, because see how this government is providing subsidy, eventually it's people's money which is going to the subsidy. So, we are paying for water in an indirect way, we are paying higher taxes, we are paying the our household purification system. So, we install a RO in our households that cost 15-20,000, then there is a 3,000 sort of annual maintenance cost, you change filter and all that. So, if you see the lifespan of RO, let us say 5-6 years, so on an average we are spending 5,000-6,000 rupees or more than that probably per year. So, we are spending easily 500 rupees a month in the life. If we consider the life scale of an RO system, we are easily spending 500 rupees a month for that small treatment unit. So, if this trust can be built up, this that okay, you are going to get this quality water in your taps, so why people will not be willing to pay? Okay, and if you are doing it on a centrally, cost is obviously going to be lesser than the separate units. So, there is a scope of that. Okay. There is another question, is it possible to get your guidance to do this work here in Utopia? Yes, Suraj, means whatever guidance is needed, I will be very happy to provide that. Okay. Since your reason that you are willing to work on is Utopia, so if you are there, you try to assemble, collect the data, and as we were saying, so if you can manage to get hold of the basic data, basic information, we will be very happy to suggest you, to guide you like what specific approaches. And moreover, see, this type of case studies you cannot plan just in a single day or in a 1 hour's time period. So, you initiate it, and as and when these like some data comes, many things you can decide based on looking at the data. Oh, this is looking interesting, so let us explore detail on this. You can get some conclusion or even some research based conclusion out of that data also. So, if you are able to get hold of the basic data, I will be very happy to take you guide you through how you can take the next step, or what kind of survey is needed, how you should set up your questionnaire. So, all those whatever support we can provide, we will be happy to offer you.
So, probably that to get the basic data. So
problem is to get the data, and since it is a foreign nation, there we cannot help you too much. So, that data collection part has to be dealt by you only. But as far as the guidance is considered, of course, we will be very happy to suggest you, or for that matter anyone who is willing to take up such assignments. Okay. It will be absolutely our pleasure. So, I think we are running out of time. So, we will thank then all our participants for joining in this session. I will especially thank Professor Sahu, because from his very busy schedule, I have requested him and brought him here so that he can share some of his ideas with you. And so, our course has formally ended. Okay, and this is the last session, in a way we can say that live interaction session for the course. I wish all the participants the very best for all their future assignments. Okay, and those who are participating in exam, I wish them very best for the exam also. And I am sure if you follow the discussions, you are going to do pretty good in the exam. Okay, and thank you all for joining us. Okay.
Yeah, so all the best the participants. Okay,
and
take care.
One last thing, we are still will be, as I told you earlier also, we will be very active on the forum, particularly until the exam is there. So, for any query, any questions, feel free to post it on the forum, and we'll be try to answer it in quick time. Okay. And with this, thank you all, and all the very best for your future. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being us with this 12 weeks course. So I hope that we'll have some opportunity to interact, maybe personally or through e-interaction in future as well. Thank you.